Manami went all out, shifting up to Gear 10 in one go. Under the painful stimulus, his masochistic soul ignited, as if entering an uninhabited realm. Sakamichi struggled to keep up, shifting up 2 gears and starting to draft. At the curve's exit, he finally saw Manami's retreating figure. The audience thought Sakamichi would be crushed by the despairing gap and give up the chase. However, Sakamichi loves chasing more than anything. Once he sees a target, he relentlessly pursues it. Now, he even started hallucinating, feeling as if riding became easier, a hero's aura at play. Despite a chaotic route, Sakamichi caught up to Manami. At a critical moment, Sakamichi sang the princess song and managed to pull alongside Manami with 500 meters to go. Both pushed their limits, but in those last 500 meters, despite exhausting all their energy, they had to determine a winner. Manami tried to break away in the bends, but Sakamichi increased his cadence and caught up on the straights. Arakita, hearing that both competitors were his trainees, felt immense pride. Soon, Sakamichi and Manami surged towards the finish line, roaring as they crossed. The long high school league finally ended, with Sakamichi winning by a slim margin. Manami sincerely rejoiced for Sakamichi, though they were both too exhausted to continue. Fortunately, the logistics team arrived in time to prevent any injuries. Todo and Juchi took 3rd and 4th place, with Yusuke and Shunsuke in 5th and 6th. Yusuke sincerely thanked Sakamichi for helping him achieve his dream. Shingo, sitting in the medical room, was moved to tears. The award ceremony was about to begin. Tadokoro really wanted to join Shingo on the podium, being the hardest worker in Sohoku, but couldn't contact him. He was probably still resting at a medical point in the mountains. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in Hakone's team was quite tense. Manami, although outwardly calm, was actually very self-critical for not continuing Hakone's dynasty. However, Juchi told him the results were final and to focus on next year, when he would lead Hakone in seeking revenge, as the current seniors would be gone. The seniors, although serious, still cared deeply for Manami. When the award ceremony arrived, the entire Sohoku team, including the injured Shingo and Naruko, was brought up first, thanks to the considerate event organizers. Back at school, to reward Sakamichi for helping the team gain an overall advantage, Shingo let him decide the next training destination. The seniors clearly didn't understand Sakamichi well. This was basically the same as letting him take them to Akihabara. The seniors' final group training concluded in Akihabara. Due to damage to Shunsuke's bike frame, graded the entire bike, installing an electronic shifter which reduced his shifting time. This was a significant boost for a rider like Shunsuke who prefers fine-tuning his gears. For Sakamichi, his brother went even further by replacing his bike with a new one, switching to a carbon fiber frame that halved the weight, an essential factor for a climber. Naruko also upgraded his bike to a carbon wheelset, ideal for sprinters. Yusuke suddenly applied to quit the club because he was going to study abroad and would be leaving Japan soon. He planned to train in his team uniform one last time before leaving. Coincidentally, he met Sakamichi returning from a ride and invited him to climb Mount Peak together. Unaware of Yusuke's plans to leave, Sakamichi noticed his melancholic demeanor and decided to join him. Yusuke won the climb that day. Sakamichi expressed his desire to surpass Yusuke before he graduated, but now realized he wouldn't get the chance. Yusuke assured Sakamichi that his spirit would remain with him, and one day he would surpass him. Sohoku is yours now, Sakamichi. After Yusuke's departure, Shingo and Tadokoro were also graduating. Shingo handed over the captaincy to Teshima, with Aoyagi becoming the vice-captain. The style of these two seniors changed significantly, perhaps a reflection of their increased roles. The new team's training officially began under Teshima and Aoyagi, who were eager to make their mark with a 1,500-meter sprint against the juniors. They started with full force, and while the juniors were strategizing, Teshima and Aoyagi had already surged ahead. Shunsuke realized too late that he had been outpaced. Observing Teshima and Aoyagi's muscular legs, it was clear they had undergone intense training recently. They seized the opportunity of the juniors' naivety and left them behind. Shingo knew Aoyagi had trained harder than anyone, significantly improving his sprinting ability. Eventually, the second-year seniors reached the finish line first, and only then did they realize that Sakamichi had fallen far behind. It seemed the author had reset Sakamichi's abilities to zero, burdening him with the responsibility of leading Sohoku, as Yusuke had mentioned. This pressure overwhelmed him, leading to a crash even on flat ground. Sakamichi's clipless pedals, which should lock when necessary, failed him when he needed them most. Teshima consoled Sakamichi, reminding him that he was now Sohoku's only climber and needed to regain his confidence. Thinking of this, Sakamichi cheered up again. Actually, Teshima was the most secretive. He verbally stated that Sakamichi was the only climber, but in reality he followed Yusuke's advice and started developing as a climber himself. Aoyagi focused on sprinting and Teshima on climbing, forcibly assigning skills to the two seniors. To celebrate Teshima becoming captain, a friend wanted to invite him to karaoke and mentioned that Teshima's favorite beautiful sister was also invited. However, Teshima said that women would only slow down his cycling speed and that a road bike can't carry two people, ruthlessly rejecting his friend's invitation. No one could stop him from training. Meanwhile, Hakone's new captain was Toichiro, with the vice captain being the climber Kuroda. Hayato also recommended a new player, Takuto, who was Teshima's teammate in junior high. Standing at 2 meters, Takuto is the tallest player in Hakone's history. After the high school league, there were some small races to participate in. Sakamichi joined the Mount Peak climbing race. As the champion of the high school league, Sakamichi naturally attracted a lot of attention, which made him uncomfortable. Fortunately, Teshima timely used his back-patting skill. No matter how bad the mindset, a pat on the back and a sincere talk could revive Sakamichi. Even Hakone's team participated in this race, including the 2-meter-tall Takuto, who came specifically for Sakamichi to show Sohoku a lesson. The race started, and everyone rode very conservatively. However, Takuto was there to disrupt the event. He began swaying his bike, which looked quite exaggerated, like a metronome, as if he was playing music with his body. Akira felt inferior. Suddenly, this eccentric caught up to the Sohoku trio. If you hadn't told me, I would have thought I was watching Attack on Titan. Since he caught up, it was time for the enjoyable chatting phase. Unexpectedly, this eccentric had such a strong, oppressive aura, but was naturally clueless. He mistook Shunsuke for Sakamichi, creating an extremely awkward moment. Teshima, being an old friend, broke the awkward silence and exchanged pleasantries. The reason Takuto could ride like a metronome was because he loved playing the piano since he was young. When Teshima introduced him to road cycling, he found he preferred the sound of chain friction and gave up music to become a cyclist. After a brief exchange, Takuto told everyone he was Hakone's next ace and began to show his strength. Using his height and long legs, he accelerated first and started swaying left and right while pulling the bike. Teshima quickly followed, surprising Shunsuke with his speed. Teshima had suddenly become so fast. Having climbed this mountain frequently as children, Teshima and Takuto now had the chance to compete on familiar ground, which seemed like fate. Shunsuke and Sakamichi were shocked and thrilled by Teshima's racing style, but they didn't have a role in this episode and could only cheer silently from behind. Teshima, not a naturally gifted cyclist, struggled to keep up with Takuto and was reaching his limit. However, his passion inspired Sakamichi, and Shunsuke timely assisted, pushing Sakamichi into the race for the championship. This race was specifically for Sakamichi, and when he caught up, Takuto tried to accelerate to increase the gap. But chasing is Sakamichi's strength. He imagined Takuto as his senior Yusuke, noting their similar bike-rocking styles, although Yusuke rocked the bike and Takuto called out. Teshima again assisted Sakamichi, giving him a push that ultimately helped him overtake Takuto at the finish line. After losing, Takuto felt guilty for failing to maintain his lead and disappointing Juichi. Previously doubted for his height while other sports anime protagonists suffered from being too short, Takuto's issue was his excessive height, a luxury problem. Juichi had saved him during his confusion by emphasizing that his height was a feature, not a flaw, and with Hayato's help, he adjusted his bike seat and riding style, which led to his selection for the Hakone team. However, Takuto's mental breakdown during a race led to a surprising reverse ride, shocking Juichi and resulting in an indefinite suspension. Despite disappointing Juichi, he wasn't blamed since his opponent was the exceptional Sakamichi. Next, he would just have to try harder since beating the protagonist's halo seemed impossible. The upcoming city circuit race involved Sohoku's sprinters, including Tadokoro in his last high school race. Aoyagi and Naruko gave their all to prove they could carry on the seniors' will, but ultimately, Senior Tadokoro overtook them at the last moment and won. The top 3 spots were taken by Sohoku's seniors, marking their retirement and the beginning of a new era for Sohoku. After the captain retired, Shunsuke suggested that Naruko should become an all-rounder as the team lacked finishers. Naruko refused, wanting to remain a pure sprinter. The two parted on bad terms. Meanwhile, an unexpected visitor arrived at the cycling club. A guy who, not knowing the activity room door was locked, ended up breaking it down. With that kind of strength, it's a shame he isn't training for weightlifting. Upon closer inspection, it turns out he's another giant, and he's Terufumi's younger brother, Sadatomi. The family resemblance is uncanny, which raises the question if their father ever considered a paternity test. Sadatomi, still in junior high, aims to get into Sohoku and join the cycling club. His visit was to train with everyone. Suddenly, Shunsuke interrupted the conversation, brought out a roller trainer, and stated that unless Sadatomi could use it, he wouldn't allow him to train with the team. Honestly, Shunsuke seems like the real captain, always meddling. Fortunately, Sadatomi passed the test perfectly. Terufumi claimed he personally trained his brother, so there was no doubt about his skills. True enough, he's just as slow as Terufumi, even mimicking his movements. Shunsuke thought Sadatomi was just a copycat with no real talent. However, Sakamichi still wanted to help the junior, stepping back to teach him climbing techniques. Shunsuke was about to speed off, not wanting to waste time on a novice, but Tashima asked him to ride with Sadatomi for 3 minutes. He saw potential in Sadatomi, whose only issue was poor posture that wasted his strength. Fixing this could make him an immediate asset to the team. This reminded Shunsuke of how Sakamichi had improved and helped the team win championships. Convinced, Shunsuke told Sadatomi he would give him a chance, but he must forget everything Terufumi taught him and learn Sakamichi's techniques. Surprisingly, Sadatomi picked it up quickly and caught up with Sakamichi. However, due to his first time adopting this high-frequency riding style, he quickly ran out of energy and fell. Yet, this showed Shunsuke his potential. After training, Naruko approached Tashima, feeling lost and requesting 3 days off to find himself. Although verbally opposing the transformation into an all-rounder, he felt Shunsuke might be right. With the captain's approval, Naruko returned to Osaka. He returned to his origins where he trained on the familiar circular track since childhood. After Sohoku High School's victory, Naruko became well known. Many cyclists from the track sought to challenge him, but none matched his skills. Naruko continued to win, feeling stronger since joining Sohoku and more determined to remain a sprinter. Suddenly, Akira appeared beside him. Aware of Akira's prowess, Naruko couldn't pass up the chance for a race. However, Akira wanted to wager something on the match. Naruko agreed, stating he would quit being a sprinter if he lost. Akira also raised the stakes. If he lost, he would join Sohoku next year to help them win the championship. The race was set for 10 laps. Akira started strong, not slowing even on curves. Naruko quickly caught up on the straightaways. The two were evenly matched, even colliding as they rode side by side, taking turns leading. After 4 laps, Akira seemed to have evolved, becoming stronger than in his previous high school races. Naruko regained the lead using a curving technique and shifted to an outer gear to pull ahead. Realizing Naruko was no ordinary competitor, Akira had been reserving his strength, assessing his rival before making his move. By the 7th lap, Naruko's full sprint had created a significant gap. Even Kyoto Fushimi's team began to worry, though Kotaro remained confident in Akira's timing. Unexpectedly, Akira's true identity seemed like Orochimaru as he sprouted wings and pursued Naruko fiercely. The race turned intense, with Akira overtaking Naruko, who pushed himself to the limit, even bleeding from the effort. Despite discarding his water bottle and seat to lighten his load, Naruko was ultimately defeated by Akira. Devastated, Naruko fulfilled his promise to quit sprinting after losing at his home track. Akira thought he had crippled Sohoku, but inadvertently assisted Shunsuke. With Sohoku's story pausing, the focus shifts to Hakone. Hakone has a tradition of hosting a graduation race for seniors, spanning 120 kilometers, demanding a clear winner. When the race reached a dual carriageway, the senior quartet attacked, followed by second-year students like Toichiro and Manami, setting up a 4 versus 4 showdown. Toichiro zipped up his jersey, ready to sprint with all his might and officially declare war on the seniors. His direct opponent was Hayato. In just a moment, the seniors had pulled ahead. Manami, not wanting to lose again, immediately moved to the front of the pack to lead. But the seniors told him to move aside. They knew Manami was too impatient due to his previous defeat. The flat stretches were better left to the sprinters. Toichiro had also prepared bib numbers for everyone, urging them to catch up, or the seniors would reach the finish. Finally, Toichiro accelerated, and under his lead, the juniors quickly caught up with the senior riders. Hayato entered his pervert mode, and Toichiro upgraded too, naming his back muscles Fabian. The showdown between Muscle Aniki and Chikan began, with neither gaining an upper hand. Hayato reminisced about his experiences with Toichiro, eager to see his progress in this race. Both kept up full speed, watching the finish line get closer. Toichiro, aware that his days with Hayato were coming to an end, did not disappoint and managed to overtake Hayato just before the finish line to win the race. With the sprint race over, it was time for the climbing segment, featuring a battle between Todo and Manami, Hakone's current and former mountain gods. Before the race, they chatted, with Todo asking Manami if he had been practicing with Sakamichi, which reminded Manami of his defeat at the high school championships. Now darker in mood, Manami even regretted giving Sakamichi water back then, thinking he could have won if Sakamichi had succumbed to thirst. Todo, still influential, told Manami to keep in touch with Sakamichi to mutually advance their skills. The chat ended as they reached the climbing race's finish. Next, the ace showdown began with Arakita and Juichi, facing Takudo and Kuroda, with only 2 kilometers to the finish. Kuroda suddenly shifted gears and recalled his past as a sports prodigy in basketball, baseball, and swimming, quickly excelling in cycling too. Despite learning cycling with Toichiro, he was faster and stronger. His goal was a starting position at Hakone, but upon arriving, he found all starters to be odd, particularly Arakita, who bluntly said Kuroda would soon give up cycling. This remark infuriated Kuroda, a star in his social circles, never insulted like this before. Their first meeting was as tense as this race, with Kuroda now abandoning being a climber to become a top domestique. Kuroda had always disliked Arakita, yet he couldn't outperform him in races. Over time, as he pursued Arakita, his feelings evolved from disdain to seeing him as a role model. Finally, through his efforts, Kuroda managed to get ahead of Arakita, assisting Takudo to gain a position just 500 meters from the finish line. As symphonic music filled Takudo's mind, he began to shake his bike rhythmically, leaving Juichi behind and securing the win for the juniors. Takudo proved he deserved the ace title. With the new school year, 2 freshmen joined Sohoku, drawn by its championship title. Both fans of Sakamichi, they failed to recognize him in person. Sakamichi and Shunsuke ended up in the same class, and things were normal until Naruko's voice was heard, teasing him about his hairstyle resembling Vegeta. Shunsuke couldn't stand it and quickly restored Naruko's hair with a swift touch, revealing that Naruko's transformation wasn't just his hairstyle, but also his ambition to become an all-rounder. In the cycling club room, the 2 new members, red-haired Issa and buzzcut Danchiku, introduced themselves. With many newcomers this year due to the high school championship win, Sohoku prepared for its welcoming race. Terufumi, a second year, unexpectedly volunteered to join the freshman race, eager to compete. Sakamichi, despite his limited social skills, wanted to encourage the newcomers. Remembering how his seniors would pat him on the back when nervous, he tried the same gesture, which accidentally frightened the freshmen, making them apologize profusely. Attempting to explain, he accidentally made them think he was calling them trash, unintentionally solidifying his image as a Dark Lord. Fortunately, Teshima explained to Sakamichi that the juniors admired him for his transformation from a beginner to a champion. To motivate the freshmen further, Teshima asked Sakamichi to start the race. With Sakamichi's signal, the Sohoku welcoming race began. The newcomer race officially started. Terufumi joined the race to secure a spot in the high school league. Normally, overtaking was not allowed in the city area. But this year, 2 clever freshmen rushed out just before the traffic lights turned red, creating a significant gap from the main group. Terufumi tried to stop them but was instead invited to take turns leading with them. He refused, as it was against the rules. Unexpectedly, Issa and Danchiku, previously recognized by Teshima, caught up and passed them swiftly. If they could secure the top 2 spots in this race, they would both qualify for the high school league. Their strength was clearly superior to the other freshmen, with only Terufumi able to keep up. Just when Sakamichi thought Issa and Danchiku would win, Terufumi surged ahead, taking the lead and sharing that he had always admired Shunsuke and dreamed of competing alongside him in the high school league. Issa and Danchiku did not try to catch up, saving their energy for the longer, hillier parts of the race, expecting to overtake Terufumi later. However, Shunsuke felt they were underestimating Terufumi, who is known for his endurance and ability to maintain high speeds over long distances. Suddenly, Issa realized they had not seen Terufumi for a long time and needed to sprint to catch up. Danchiku, now less tense, joked about transforming and suggested going to report at Hakone. Previously, they were part of a strong amateur team in Chiba, open to anyone with skill, holding monthly elimination rounds to keep only the top 15 members. Under Danchiku's fiery lead, they quickly caught up with Terufumi, erasing his lead instantly. Terufumi lost his spirit, but Shunsuke promptly reprimanded him and pushed him forward, albeit jokingly calling it soliciting help from the audience. Terufumi accelerated again, but the others were now out of sight. Teshima decided to move ahead to observe Issa and Danchiku, effectively giving up on Terufumi. Watching the support vehicle move away, Terufumi felt hopeless and was about to give up completely. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared behind Terufumi. It was his younger brother. Now Terufumi also had a teammate. Issa and Danchiku felt confident they were about to win. However, Teshima told them that although Terufumi was unreliable, he had inherited Sohoku's spirit and would never give up easily. Indeed, with Sadatomi's help, the brothers caught up to the support vehicle again, closing the gap with the leading duo. Sadatomi had always been looked after by his older brother and could not let him down when asked for help. The brothers, exerting all their strength, finally caught up to Issa. Despite Issa and Danchiku being stronger, Shunsuke believed Terufumi still had a chance to win by exploiting Issa's moment of doubt. Issa was shaken seeing Terufumi catch up, despite being less skilled. Seeing Issa flustered, Danchiku slapped him to bring him back to his senses, criticizing his panic after all the practice and effort. Regaining his composure, Issa roared past Terufumi in the final sprint. With Danchiku leading fiercely, Issa gained a significant lead, while Sadatomi fell behind due to lack of stamina. Terufumi was left on his own, but long-distance sprints were his specialty. With Danchiku having used too much energy early on, he was eventually overtaken by Terufumi, who caught up and even drew level with Issa in the last 40 meters. As they neared the finish line neck and neck, Terufumi suddenly pushed his bike forward, mimicking a trick he learned from Akira. However, Issa still won the race. Despite Terufumi's clever move, it didn't secure him the victory. His teammates felt sorry for him, but he kept smiling until he was alone and then couldn't help but cry. If Issa and Danchiku placed in the top two, the high school league roster would become overcrowded, possibly leading to someone being kicked out. Issa eventually made it into the high school league roster. Unlike previous years where the roster was confirmed at the end of the camp, this year Teshima made an exception. He then challenged Issa to race against Sakamichi, who disappointed Issa with his unimpressive demeanor. Issa quickly sped up, leaving Sakamichi behind, only to find Sakamichi effortlessly catching up, ready to go all out and leaving Issa behind, realizing the vast gap between them. Teshima had chosen Sakamichi to train Issa because this year's race was on Irohazaka, with an altitude of 1,840 meters, double that of last year's Hakone course, a hellish sprinter's challenge. With the high school league preliminaries approaching and the course being 6 kilometers per loop, this year differed by having 6 participants instead of last year's trio of seniors, giving new characters a chance to perform, even changing the rules to accommodate them, showing great consideration. Excited for his debut, he broke away from the main group right at the start. He didn't seem like an experienced veteran at all. It was like a forced dumbing down. Immediately there was trouble. The bike's tire burst. He instantly went from first to last place. Unexpectedly, the entire Sohoku team stopped to wait for him. I felt this was somewhat insulting to the other competitors. Moreover, this was a crucial qualifying race. Losing meant no chance to compete in the high school league. Teshima calmly began telling Issa a story about how Tadakuro, despite feeling unwell, caught up with the main group. Keeping 6 riders together is a Sohoku tradition. Sohoku, taking advantage of their protagonist Halo, acted as they pleased. Once the story ended, the spare tire finally arrived. By then, the main group was about to complete a lap. In track racing, being lapped means automatic disqualification. Without this rule, you could let the opponent win by 9 laps. Sohoku set off again. Tashima threw his water bottle to an opponent behind him, saying he'd retrieve it once he caught up. This was Tashima's favorite psychological tactic. The provoked rider immediately rushed out. As the main group dispersed, their speed decreased, providing Sohoku a perfect opportunity to catch up. Next, Aoyagi was ready to unleash his special move. He began to inhale deeply, then transformed into a fat man. This had become a supernatural anime. Sohoku's meatball train, terrifyingly able to expand and contract at will. Under the new elastic train's lead, Sohoku finally regained first place in the 9th lap. Their showing off worked exactly as they wanted. This race was meant to make Issa the ace and secure the championship. Shunsuke led in front, with Sakamichi and Naruko pushing from behind. Honestly, how much did Issa pay you all? It was like you were protecting him like a father. In the final sprint, Shunsuke gave Issa another boost, pushing him all the way to the finish line. Remember to give him a raise, boss. Issa was shocked. He never expected to go from last to champion. His teammates were too strong. After the race, Shunsuke and Naruko were quite upset. They didn't really want to give up the championship, but had no choice since he paid so much. Many had come to scout Sohoku's strength at the qualifiers, including Kyoto Fushimi's Mizuta. He thought the current Sohoku was perfect. However, Akira believed that once a weakness in something perfect is found, it becomes very fragile. Akira wasn't afraid of Sohoku because he had also grown stronger this year, and his team had a strong new member named Kamari. Although he seemed just a masseur for his teammates, Akira knew his strength was extraordinary. Suddenly, Sakamichi received a call from Manami, who said he was near Akihabara. Sakamichi didn't hesitate and cycled there immediately. However, Manami had already left. Arriving in Akihabara, Sakamichi only found the water bottle Manami had left for him. A token of commitment has arrived again. The Sohoku training camp is scheduled as expected. To increase the challenge for Issa, Teshima requires him to stay more than 10 meters away from Danchiku. He has equipped both of them with sensors that will sound an alarm if they get too close. Teshima also outfitted himself and Aoyagi with the same device, limiting their reliance on teamwork. This camp is extremely strict. If the current regular members do not finish in the top 4 by the end of it, they will be kicked out of the team. Then what was the point of announcing Issa as a regular member? Issa's morale is shattered. Before the camp began, he specifically asked Danchiku to break the wind for him. Now he feels he can't complete the 1,000 kilometers, let alone finish in the top 6. Before he knew it, he was in last place, with Shunsuke and Naruko already a lap ahead. Encouraged by Shunsuke, Issa sets off again, but feels completely unable to run. Even Danchiku has lapped him. The two stop to talk it out, with Danchiku constantly brainwashing Issa, convincing him of his genius. Issa actually believes it, regaining his energy and starting to chase his seniors. Sakamichi arrives late. Due to motion sickness, he chose to travel here with Senior Koga and thus lagged behind everyone. Koga, a new character, was not a regular player before, but was in charge of equipment logistics. He did not attend the camp last year, so he was unfamiliar to everyone. Shunsuke steps forward to ask Teshima who this Senior Koga really is. While everyone is chatting, Koga instantly overtakes Sakamichi and the others, then turns to declare a challenge. He states this is his last chance to compete in the high school league and he doesn't plan to give this opportunity to Issa, the junior. That's all for today's episode. See you in the next one.